Greetings, pilgrims, and welcome to another episode of the Polygon Pilgrimage. And today I've got something pretty exciting to share with you. We are going to continue to work on our airdrops here, and as you can see, we're going to make sure that they actually fall from the sky, parachute down, get rid of the parachute, and then once they land, we're going to have this handy-dandy blinking light and the smoke that lasts for just a few seconds in order to show off, hey, here it is. And we're going to do all of this together. One simple script, a little bit of animation inside of Unity, and the rest is some simple setup, and we're going to make a prefab out of it. So then you can call in these as often as you like. So let's go ahead and get started with it. And jump into the scene and take a look at what we have. So if I zoom in on our little area here, you can see I've got two of these guys. So this is the first one that I made here. And this is my prefab called AirDrop. And as you can see over here, he's got a couple of things about him. He does have a rigid body. This is what allows him to fall through the sky. And then we have this section here for the AirDrop script. And there's a couple things we need to hook up. And then if I open it up here, you can see here that he has a couple of things about him. It looks complicated. It's really not. It's just a couple of items. And a lot of this is what working off of what we've already done. So if you go back and watch the previous episodes, you'll have all the assets you need to make this work. Okay? So then over here is a second one that I made in order to follow along with myself to make sure that I understood it properly and that everything works. And as you can see, they're identical. I just have a white light on this one, and this one has a different colored light here. Totally up to you. But we're going to create it from scratch together. So let me go ahead and get rid of my AirDrop guy. Well, let's just move him over here. And we're going to create a new one right next to this together. So let me grab my notebook right here, and I'm going to go through all the steps with you. It's nice and simple, and I think you'll really enjoy this. Okay. So as you can see here with our AirDrop, we've got several pieces to this, but we're going to create a brand new one right here in space. So I'm just going to say game object, create empty. Okay? So here he is, just kind of floating here in the scene. So this is going to be our game object. So let's call this AirDrop. So I'm going to call this TUT_AirDrop. So tutorial AirDrop. And here he is. He can be anywhere you like. You can put him at the origin if you want. I'm just going to put it right here so we can see it side by side. We know that we're creating it properly. All right, so now we're going to need 3 blank objects underneath of this. So over here in our hierarchy, I'm going to right-click and say create empty. I'm going to right-click it again, create empty. One more time, create empty. So now he has 3 child objects. So we're going to go to the first one, and we're going to rename this to canopy. Canopy, okay? We're going to rename the second one to payload. Payload, P-A-Y-L-O-A-D, enter. And this third one is going to be our ground detection. So ground space detection. Okay, there we go. So that's all we need for that. Now we're going to actually put some models and stuff in here, and those are the models that we built last time. So I go into my meshes folder. You can see here I have the BRS_AirDrop, and that's the crate here that you see with the cloth on top and with the palette underneath. And then we have the actual chute itself. So for our AirDrop object here, I'm going to click and drag from my meshes. The actual crate I'm going to put under payload, and the chute I'm going to put under canopy. Just like that. And there you go. You can see that they're built to kind of go together. So there they are. Now, what we need to do here is we've put in the crates, we put in the payloads. We need to add colliders because these things are actually just kind of empty shells right now. We can pass right through them because we haven't told the game yet that, hey, these actually need to have something. Our chute doesn't really need anything because it's not really going to be interacted with, but the payload, once it's on the ground, it will. So we're going to need to do that. So really simple. We're just going to open this up, expand that, and choose Create Metal. And I'm going to say Add Component, Physics, Box Collider. And then for the palette itself, Add Component, Physics, Box Collider. And that's all you need to do. The cloth, this cover is what I called it. You know, it's resting close enough to the metal crate that you don't really need to have a collider all on its own. And the straps, you could technically put a collider because it is a little slight angle. But really, I think these two combined, it's close enough. Okay. So now that we've done that, we also need to assign the materials. So let's go back to our project and find our materials that we made last time. And the AirDrop, I'm just going to drag and drop it onto each one. So this is one material that actually paints all 4 objects. There you go. And for the chute, you can pick which one you like. Since I made the first one with our normal chute texture that we made last time, and my second one I made with the circles, I'm going to do this one with the cool logo one. So let's find the logo one. There he is. Cool. Okay, so all the materials are assigned. Our guy is looking good. But you know what he also needs is he needs a rigid body. Because right now he's just going to float in air. Because he's not actually being told that it's going to be physics and heavy at all. If we look at our other objects, you can see, as we mentioned right away, there's a rigid body to that guy. So let's go to our toot_airdrop. Let's add component, physics. We're going to add a rigid body. Okay, now, our rigid body, we're going to give him a mass of 1,000. Okay. His drag, we're going to give him a drag of 5. And for his angular drag, it's going to be a 0.075. These are just my settings. You can play around with it and see what you like. The drag is really what is going to give you the most effect for how slow or how quickly this thing is going to drop. Okay, so now that we're done with that, let's set up the fact that this guy will be able to detect when he's going to hit the ground. So you notice we have this object called ground detection. Well, that's going to be the object that this is just a placeholder right now, but he's going to hold a box collider and he'll tell us when we touch the ground. So let's go ahead and add a box collider. So we're going to say, select the ground detection, add component, physics, box collider. I'm going to give him some very specific settings here. I've got it written down here. So his Y position is going to be 1.3. And then I'm going to say you will be a trigger. So is trigger, check that box. And then his size, his scale here, we're going to set it in the box collider down here, not in the full transform of the object. But down here, we're going to say 2.75 for each of these. Okay, 2.75. And what that means is that if he bumps into something on the side, it'll trigger it. Or right beneath this, it's just a little bit beneath the pallet there, is when it will trigger that we've actually touched the ground. Perfect. So that guy's all set. Then we need to add just a few more things, and then we're ready to create our coding and do our special animation for the light. So all of this is set up now. Let's go back to the base object, tutorial airdrop. We need to add 2 more objects. We need to add our light and our particle system. Okay? So let's go ahead and say right click. You can just right click on them and say light, and I add a point light. Okay? And it's going to put it right at the center mass. We don't want it directly at the center mass. We want it to have a translation on the Y of 3.125. And that will put him right on top here. So nice little blinking light. So if you're up on a hill and you look down, you can see it. It'll blink to get your attention. Very cool. So that guy's all set for right now. And you can change anything you want about the light as far as the color and all that. The range, all that sort of thing. We can bring this down a little bit. The range is maybe a little far. Maybe 5 is fine. And my intensity, I'm going to put it at 2 for now. And then you can change the color. So let's pick a color together. Something like this. Something to grab our attention. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now let's go back to our tutorial airdrop object. Right click one more time. I'm going to create an effect, a particle system. Now our particle system, we're going to have to give that a position as well. So the translation is going to be 2.5 on that guy right there. And he's going to have to have a rotation on the X of minus 90, because you notice how he's currently going off to the side there. We don't really want that. So let's minus 90. So he's upright, okay? Now, for this guy, obviously this doesn't look like smoke yet. This is just a standard particle system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this, and we'll go over to our previous one that I made, and I'm going to copy all the settings, and then I'll step through them for you, okay? So if you go to the smoke, this is a really cool trick as well. If you set up something already and you really like everything you did, and you want to create a new one, you don't always have to make a copy, move it over here, attach it. You can just create a new one and then go to your old one, and up here, the little cog right here, right click and say copy component. And then I can go to the new one. So I'll collapse this, go to our new one right here, this guy, right click on the cog and say paste component values. Boom. And now look at that. Give it a second to catch up here. And now we have smoke. And it copied all the values, okay? So for yours, you're not going to have these values right away. Pardon me. So I'm going to go down the list for you right now, and we're going to talk about all the settings. So for our smoke, we have a duration of 20. Looping is not checked. Pre-warm is not checked. Start life is 5 and 8. Start speed is 1 and 2. Start size is 4 and 3. Our start rotation is negative 360 and 360. We are set to world space. Simulation speed is 1. Delta time is scaled. Scaling mode is local. Play on awake is true. So then when we activate the thing, it starts to play. Emitter velocity is based upon the rigid body. That's perfect. 1,000 max particles, no problem. Auto random seed is checked. For our emission, we have a set of rate of 10. Okay. For our shape, we are set to a cone, 12 for the angle. The radius, this is really up to you. I put mine at about 0.09, so mine's 0.0895, blah, blah, blah. 0.09 is good enough. Thickness of 1, arc of 360, mode is random. Our length is 5, emit from base, and all this is static. I didn't change any of this. Scale of 111, okay? Color over lifetime. So this one is a gradation, so you want it to be completely transparent, go up to your color of choice, and then stay that way for a while, and then fade off at the end. So if I bring this up, you can see this is what it looks like. You just click there, and you can change all these values just by sliding these guys around. You can click to add a new one. You can click and drag into it to get rid of that one. And when you click these, it'll ask you for the colors down here. And up here, it's going to ask you for the alpha. So you'll notice that here, the alpha is 0. So it's completely transparent. And then it becomes full transparency for a bit. It remains kind of smoky, and then it fades off at the end of its life. So play with this until you like the way it looks. It's totally up to you. Down here, rotation over lifetime, I have angular velocity -30 and 30. Noise, the noise here, I just clicked noise and it fills in some of these values for you. So strength is 0.25, 0.5 for frequency, 0.2 for scroll speed, damping is true, octaves 1, and then the high 3D, and I didn't touch any of this, so it all does that for you as soon as you click noise. The texture sheet animation, this came in because it was from the Unity sample thing, so this came in checked for me, but grid mode, use the whole sheet, 5x5, frame over time is just a straight diagonal line, and then cycles of 1 and everything. So that came in for me, but if you need to put that in there, that's how that works. And then the renderer down here is standard with a particle system, but it's billboard, normal direction is 1, smoke light particle is actual material. You may need to create a material and put it in here, but that's okay. Just any material that is dark with some transparent edges would be fine. And then oldest in front, max particle is 10. And then the view is the render alignment. And then the pivot is a -0.2. And that's it. So those are all the settings that came with the smoke particle, but you can get all kinds of particle systems on the asset store and all over the place. And this is just one that came with the samples, and it's free on the asset store. So if you just search for that, I'll find the link and I'll put it in the description for you as well. So you can download those and use this particle system if you like. But these are the settings, so hopefully that will help you. Okay. So with all of that set, the last thing we're going to do before we get into our coding is we're going to animate our light. And this is pretty simple. So you noticed in the example earlier, our light did this nice slow blink. And we're going to do that by selecting our light. And I'm going to name our light while we're here. Let's name this smoke light. Okay. And I'm going to name our particle system just smoke. There we go. So now that we have our particle system selected, I'm actually going to disable it for right now because it's going to be enabled in our code, but we want it to be dormant until the moment we hit the ground. So I'm going to select our smoke light here, and you need to bring up the animation window. So if you go up to the top, window, you need animation. So it's Control-6. Now careful, you want animation, not the animator. Okay, you want animation. And if I click that, you'll see something like this will appear. For me, I like to dock it down here. So I'll dock it down here to get this nice wide view of it, okay? So now, you'll notice right in the middle we have this create button. So I'm going to click that. And what this is saying is you're about to create an animation. So I need to know what it's called and where you want to store it. So I'm going to store it at the base of our project. And you can see my 2 previous ones here. So I'm going to call this tutorial blink light animation, okay? And I'm going to click save. Now this will change, and now we can see more like a timeline view. Now we have the light selected, so we have to add the property. So I'm going to add property, and it's a light property. I'm going to expand that, and I want to change the intensity. So I'm going to click the little plus symbol next to the intensity. And now I get 2 little dots here and 2 little dots at the end over here. So this is the whole timeline. If I drag it across, you'll notice that nothing changes with the light. because the only property we have is its intensity, and both the keyframes we have are identical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these keyframes at the end over here to the 5 mark. So we're going to go from 0 to 5. And I'm going to go right in the middle at 25, colon 25 here. And I'm going to right click and say add a key. Now if I select that key and go over here and set this to 4 and hit enter. Now when I scrub, we should have, let's see, this should be 2. And this guy, I want this guy to be 4. So 4. Oh, keeps going over to 4. There we go. Boom. And then when I go down here, this should be 2, 2. It's a little finicky for me sometimes, but there we go. Now this guy's 4. No. You're 2. And then you're 4. And then you're 2. And now, should be moving. Let's see here. 4, 2, 2. There we go. 2, 4, and then back down to 2. There we go. See, it's a little finicky. I think maybe you have to click this button to kind of set it, but when I click that button, it says remove property, and I don't like that. But anyway, so 2 to 4 to 2. And you can see up here, you can see that it's actually doing it as I scroll. But if I hit the play button here, we can watch it happen. There you go, and the light's blinking nicely. There we go. Okay, so again, click here, set the number, click that, and it will kind of set the property in place for you. And you'll be able to tell that you did it because when I'm scrolling in the middle here, you'll see some crazy number here that's somewhere halfway between, because now it's animating that property. And that will just continuously loop naturally. So we don't have to touch it anymore. So we'll go back to our project view. And now that that's complete, I'm going to disable the light for now. Okay, so all of that is complete. So now we're going to set up the code, and then we should be good to just kind of package this all together into a prefab, and we'll be all set. So now that this is all together, we're going to create some code and put it on this. So if you look at our original object up here, you can see that we've got the code here, the script. So let's go ahead and create that together. So we'll go to the scripts. I'm going to right click and say create C# script. I'm going to call this BRS underscore AirDrop. Okay, and I'm going to open that up. All right, so for our script here, I'm going to do my normal thing where I'm going to realign these to the way I like it. So we need a couple of variables. So first up, we're going to get a handle to the ground detection. So public game object ground detection. There we go. And another public game object for our canopy, because we're going to get rid of that once it hits the ground. Public light. I call this drop light. This is the light that blinks when it's all done. Another public. Particle system. I'm going to call this smoke. Okay. And then a private handle to the rigid body. And we'll call this AirDrop RB for rigid body. Then we're going to have particle system. I don't know why it doesn't like that line. Because I didn't spell public correctly. Public, there we go. Then we're going to have a private boolean, so a bool called landed. And we're going to set that to false to begin with. So this will tell us when we've hit the ground. So in the start, we're going to do one thing first. We're going to say that our AirDrop rigid body is equal to the transform, so the thing that this code is attached to. Let's get its component. We'll get its rigid body. Okay, just like that. And this you'll be able to download this code as usual. I just wanted to show you kind of how this works. So what we're going to do is, on update, every frame we're going to be doing a raycast hit. Raycast hit. So object hit. So we're shooting a ray, and we're going to say if physics.raycast from, we're going to shoot a ray, we're going to say transform dot position, come on, from ourselves outward on a vector 3 dot down. So we're going to shoot a ray downwards. Then if we hit something, put out the object that we hit. So object, come on, object, hit, and a distance of 1. All right. So what that line says is we're shooting a ray downwards from ourselves. Let me show you. Shooting a ray from our position downward 1 meter. And if we hit something, put out into this object we created up here called object hit. So whatever is in that bucket now, we can actually look at it, okay? Then here we're going to say if object hit dot collider dot game object dot name. So we can actually get the name of the thing we hit, so long as it is not. So that's an exclamation mark with an equal sign. As long as it is not equal to, for me, it's going to be FPS controller. TROLER. There we go. So as long as it is not the player, so it can hit anything else, which means if it lands on top of a roof, that'll be fine too. If it lands on a hillside, that'll be fine. So we call this landed equals true. So we're flipping a state and saying, hey, we've actually landed. We're all set here. Okay. So also in the update, but right in here, we're going to have if landed, right? So if we've landed, we need to do something. We need to do a couple of things. So let's come in here. So if landed, we're going to call a function we're going to create. Drop has landed. Okay, we're going to call this function, and we're going to set landed equal to false again. So we can't drop a second time, which would be weird. Okay, so down here we're going to create a new function, void, you guessed it, drop has landed. And it's a void, so it doesn't return anything. We don't have to worry about sending data back and forth. We're just going to do a few things. So first up, getting a handle to the light, game object, dot set active, set that to true. So we'll turn on our light, okay. Smoke, remember our particle system, game object, set active, true. Let's turn on our smoke. Now that we've landed, we're going to change our properties of our rigid body a little bit here. So the rigid body dot drag, let's set that equal to 0. We want to make sure it just sinks like a stone as soon as it hits the ground. And to be sure of that, we're going to say AirDrop rigid body dot mass is equal to 5,000. So it's going to be super heavy, not able to move. Then what we're going to do is we're going to destroy the ground detection object. So ground detection, we don't need that. And we're going to destroy our canopy. Okay, so what this is going to do is every frame while we're falling, we're going to be checking to see, is the ground less than a meter beneath us? And have we hit this thing yet? And if we have, then once we've hit that, okay, cool. We're going to say we're not hitting the player, correct? If we're not hitting the player, then we've landed, we're on the ground. And that just triggers this to say, okay, go to landed, and then close the door so we can't land a second time, which would be kind of weird. Once we do that, we're going to turn on the light and turn on the smoke. We're going to make sure the thing is static and doesn't move. And then we're going to destroy the ground detection object because we've already used it. And then once we've done that, then what we're going to do is say, hey, let's destroy the canopy so that the parachute goes away. All right, so that should be everything. Let me double check it. Yep, we're good. So let's do a build all. There we go. No errors. Excellent. So, final steps here. We're going to select our tutorial AirDrop object. We're going to find our AirDrop code and just bring that over here. Oh, give it a second to compile. Pardon me. There we go. Bring that over here. And now we just have to plug everything up. So we say ground detection is you. Canopy is you. So canopy is this guy. Drop light is the smoke light. And the smoke is this guy. There we go. He's all set. So with all of that encapsulated in this one object, now if you go to your prefabs folder, you can see I have 2 of them here already. But if I just take this whole object and drag it into here, it's now a prefab. And you can see that the color changes on this guy. That tells us that, hey, this is now, something that we can just instantiate copies of. So I'm going to move it up in the air a little bit more. Now I can drag and drop out of here. Boop, boop. Just make multiple copies of it. So let's move them up in the air and we'll see them all fall together. So I'll do a quick save. Save our project, and let's hit play. And let's see if we missed anything. So we just kind of get this out of the way. And you can see no smoke, no lights until they hit the ground. Canopies go away. And here come the smoke and the lights. And here's the last guy. There you go. Smoke and lights, and everybody has landed. And we have colliders. We cannot walk through them. They're not invisible ghost objects. Now, once we get to the point where we have our UI set up and we have like our inventory, and yes, we might end up doing some gun stuff too, then we'll be able to say, okay, now we're going to use this ground detection object. We're going to come in here and say we've landed. We're going to reuse that guy and say, hey, instead of destroying you in the future, we're going to use you to now become the collision detection to say that I'm close enough that I can now loot the object. So that'll be the next couple of steps for this. We do have some code coming for the zone, for the circle moving, all kinds of that stuff coming very soon, guys. So bear with me. We've been doing a lot of coding stuff, but I wanted to give you guys something like this that is nice and visual. And it's a ton of fun if you just kind of play with it in here and say, you know what, let's just, go nuts with this and just create a whole bunch of them and put them all over the place. We can just make a field of airdrops and make it just, I did this earlier just to kind of test. A couple times they're really funny when they land on a hill. So I wanted to give you guys something like this that you can actually play with and see it work and be proud of your work and say, look, it works. It's actually doing something and something helpful. So there you go. You've got airdrops. Everything works. They fall. They're set up and they're ready. You can see from a distance even here. The blinking lights and the smoke work really well at a distance too. So next time, guys, when we work on these, we will be working on making sure that they are lootable when we have our UI set up for that. So look forward to that next with these. But I think next video we'll be working on back on the circles and the zone and more of the overall mechanics and making sure that our world is interacting, and then we have some items to loot eventually. So thank you so much for joining me, guys. I hope that you've enjoyed very much. I hope that you got a lot out of this. Sorry, my voice is a little raspy. I'm going to go. But until next time, guys, keep practicing, get better, and I'll see you next time as the pilgrimage continues.